Many of you probably have fond memories of Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid. Whether it was playing this card game or watching the show, Yu-Gi-Oh was always up there with the other TCG kid shows like Digimon or Pokemon or Bakugan. Lots of ons. The thing is, one of these is not like the other. Yu-Gi-Oh is not for kids. Let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about Yu-Gi-Oh Zero. Yu-Gi-Oh Zero is something that not many people know. It's the first Yu-Gi-Oh anime which basically tells the story of the original Yu-Gi-Oh manga before the card game becomes the main thing in Yu-Gi-Oh. Zero is pretty different from the rest of Yu-Gi-Oh, mainly because it has a very different feeling to it. It's raw and very dark with much more intensity to it. It is also very episodic, and each episode is a very different game to the last one, which makes Yu-Gi-Oh feel like a gambling anime, like Kaiji, rather than a TCG anime. In order for you to really understand why Yu-Gi-Oh! Zero feels like this, and also why Yu-Gi-Oh! In general is not for kids, I need to show you the very first episode. Zero starts off with a group of archaeologists entering an Egyptian tomb. The professor leading the group approaches a gold box. He gets all weak and in pain and announces to the group that the box is the puzzle of darkness. We now cut to the man of the hour, Yugi. Yugi is just chilling by himself and pulls out the box from the Egyptian tomb. He's about to open the box when Janucci shows up and takes the box from him. Yes, I'm using the original names. Fuck localization. Yugi basically begins getting bullied by Janucci. Janucci tells Yugi that if he wants the box, Yugi has to fight him for it. But Yugi proclaims he hates violence. Yugi is saved when his friends come to help him. Honda and Janucci run to get lunch from Miho. While on the way there, Janucci says that Anzu pisses him off and that she's a bitch, and that he is not bullying the weak, just teaching Yugi how to be a man. At the exact moment, they bump into a guy named Ushio. Ushio asks them about what they were saying about bullying. Janucci is about to give him attitude when Honda stops him and says it's nothing at all. Ushio announces that bullying is bad and then leaves. Honda explains to Janucci that that's Ushio, a very strong guy who enforces all the school rules. Janucci, however, is not convinced and remains bitter towards Ushio. Back in the classroom, Yugi explains to Anzu that his family owns a game shop and that he found the box in a corner hidden under the dust. It's apparently a puzzle discovered in the ruins of Egypt. It is said whoever solves the puzzle gets one wish granted to them. Back in the corridor, it turns out Janucci had managed to take a piece of the puzzle from the box. He then throws it out the window into a canal, saying that now Yugi can no longer finish the puzzle. Later, Yugi walks past Ushio, and Ushio asks him if he's being bullied, to which Yugi replies no. Ushio insists that Yugi tells him, but Yugi continues to deny it. Then Ushio appoints himself as Yugi's bodyguard, without Yugi saying the matter. When Yugi gets home, he sees that Anzu is there, along with his grandpa. His grandpa explains that the people who took the puzzle all died mysterious deaths, and that one of them said that it's the games of darkness before dying. It's said that whoever solves the puzzle will get the knowledge of the games of darkness. Anzu is scared, but Yugi is super intrigued and goes to work solving the puzzle. His grandpa doesn't want him to solve it, but after seeing Yugi work so hard on it, he changes his mind. When Yugi gets to school the next day, Ushio greets him and says he has something to show him. He leads Yugi to a beaten up Honda and Janucci. Yugi is shocked by this and stands up for them, calling them his friends. Ushio doesn't really give a shit and says that Yugi owes him 200,000 yen for his bodyguard services. That night, Yugi doesn't know what to do about the money and decides to just work on the puzzle to ease his mind. Though now the puzzle's a lot easier to solve than the other days. Yugi completes the puzzle except he's missing one piece. Shocked, Yugi dashes to school to find it. Meanwhile, Janucci and Honda are walking home as they talk about what happened. Janucci is moved by Yugi standing up for him and calling him his friend, so he dives into the canal to find the missing piece. When Yugi gets to school, he meets YuGiOh, who asks him for the money. Yugi says he doesn't have it and he just came back to get something. YuGiOh says Yugi will be punished for not paying him. Back at the canal, Janucci finds the missing piece, but just then, he spots Yugi being led by YuGiOh somewhere. Seeing this, Honda and Janucci decide to follow them, only to be met with Yugi getting knocked out by YuGiOh. Outraged, Janucci tosses Yugi the last piece, and then him and Honda attack YuGiOh, although they get their asses kicked. Yugi wakes back up to see his friends fall down, and he grabs the last piece and inserts it in the puzzle. The puzzle glows and a large shadow appears behind Yugi. YuGiOh is suddenly suspended by a rope from a dome. He looks up and sees Yami Yugi at the other end of the rope. Yami is the spirit inside the puzzle that possesses Yugi whenever he's in trouble. It's kind of like an alter ego, totally more badass version of Yugi. Yami tells YuGiOh that he has the money, but just handing it over is boring and suggests that he and YuGiOh play a game for it, a game of darkness. YuGiOh agrees, saying that he has never lost a game in his life. Yami jumps down with a rope attached to him as well so that they are both at the same height. He places down cards on the dome and tells YuGiOh how the game works. Basically, each player takes turns flipping over a card, and you go up the dome by its value, so 10 will move you up 10 spaces, while the other player has to go down by that amount. Whoever reaches the top of the dome wins. They duke it out, and Yami is one step away from victory, but YuGiOh claims bullshit, and that this whole thing was rigged from the start. He starts climbing up towards Yugi, but Yugi warns him that he's breaking the rules and he will face dire consequences. YuGiOh ignores him and continues climbing up. He reaches the top and breaks Yami's cord, though Yami is totally smug while falling off the dome, saying he knew this would happen. YuGiOh grabs the money, only to realize it's a deck of cards. Yami appears to be hanging on the building, the Eye of Anubis flashing on his head, as he tells YuGiOh that this is a game of darkness and that a game of darkness judges one's character. YuGiOh's rope snaps and he falls, and gets eaten by monsters that appear out of the water. Well, not really, it's just in his head. The monsters are just an illusionary trick that feels real due to the power that Yami has. The next day, Yugi is back to normal, but remembers nothing of what happened, while YuGiOh is found curled up in a ball traumatized. Yugi is greeted by Janucci, who says that he gained the treasure, like the puzzle. It can't be seen, but you can show it. Yugi asks what it is, and Janucci says friendship, and then runs off embarrassed. I mean, I would run off too if I said something corny like that. And that's how the episode ends. I bet you weren't expecting that. However, that was just the beginning. The next episodes are even more intense and crazy than this one. Literally in the second episode, Anzu gets taken hostage by a robber and Yami plays a death game with him to release her. And at the end, the robber gets lit on fire. Pretty wild stuff. Now, obviously this is YuGiOh Zero. But what about Yu-Gi-Oh with the dueling? Was that kid friendly? Nope.
It's time to do.
The show that everyone has seen as a kid, and also probably the one you were thinking about when you clicked on this video, is Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters is based off the Duel Monsters arc in Yu-Gi-Oh! The one where everyone plays the card game. Wait a minute, you might be asking. We saw this as a kid, right? Then how come we don't remember anything? We don't remember anything inappropriate or anything like that. Well, the answer is for kids censorship. If you're watching Yu-Gi-Oh! In North America, you're watching the 4Kids version. I'm not going to go into detail about all the changes that were made. There's a great video that I recommend watching made by Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. I'll link it in this video description. But basically, they removed any bit of violence, blood, or even the mention of death, as well as major character changes or character motivations. The censorship totally ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! And I urge you to watch it uncut or read the manga because it's actually really great. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters has the same concept of putting Yugi in life or death situations, although this time it's really only the card game that they play, and there's really no other life or death games that really exist aside from that. Also, there's actually a real plot. Unlike Zero, which is basically episodic, this one has an actual plot that they move forward towards with reoccurring characters and also character growth. Basically, it's a proper show with Zero's life or death games level intensity. Now you're probably wondering, what about Yu-Gi-Oh after Yugi? Well, I actually have no idea. I stopped watching Yu-Gi-Oh or reading it after they changed protagonists, but from what I've seen, it really still isn't for kids. I don't know if it's more kid friendly than the original Yu-Gi-Oh, but I still think it still has like elements of it that are still like cut out when they release it in North America. Um, but if I ever, but I don't know if I ever get to watching the newer ones, I'll probably make a video about that or maybe post an update in the comments. Yeah, if I ever get around to it. But so far, from what I know, doesn't really seem like it.
The card I pulled is Exodia, the Forbidden One.
What the?
I've assembled all the 5 needed cards.
The Yu-Gi-Oh we watched as kids is certainly not for kids. With violence, character deaths, life and death games, this certainly isn't the Yu-Gi-Oh we remember. I feel like the censorship ruined Yu-Gi-Oh, and if it had been released uncut or to an older audience, people would have loved the anime just like they love the card game. If you can, do yourself a favor and watch it in its original form. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. Seriously guys, thank you so much for watching. This is the first time I ever made a video like this, video type essay thing. But I hope you guys really enjoyed it. It was super different. I will be, going back to my normal stuff. I will be making, my normal like crazy videos. We got the Stock Challenge 3 coming. Don't know when it's coming. It's very indie production, but when it does come out, it's gonna be great. It's super huge. We put a lot of effort into that. So aside from that, I've been loading. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.